Welcome back, everyone. It's John, Wade Boggs fan. Hope everyone is doing well. So, for those of you who have been following my channel, you know that several months ago, I started on a different path of my collection. Still collecting Wade Boggs, but I'm expanding my collection to vintage and PSA graded vintage. And started off with 1978 and 79 cards, trying to pick up Hall of Famers from those years, and picked up a decent number of them, and then expanded it to, at least right now, my search for 1977s and 1980s. So 1977 to 1980, I've been looking to acquire Hall of Fame PSA vintage cards. And as you know, between 1977 and 1980, there are some pretty key rookie cards. And I've been working off a fairly small budget in terms of what I'm willing to pay per card, knowing that just between 1977 and 1980, there are probably around 200, maybe even a little bit more, 200 cards of Hall of Famers between those four sets. So I knew this was going to be a marathon, but I also knew that I didn't have a huge budget to spend a large amount of money, especially on the newer vintage, the end of the year's vintage. Obviously, the more I go back, depending on the grade, and even then, even talking about 4s and 5s, I may be looking at a decent amount of money for a particular card. But I thought in my mind that for some of the newer ones, I should be able to pick up decent grade copies. And I have some 8s and 9s, 7 here and there. But I've been working off a fairly limited budget. And if you watched the hobby talk that I had with Mike, Baseball Collector, we were talking about the beginning of my journey here collecting PSA vintage, and I mentioned a certain card that was sort of next on my list. I had checked off, with the exception of 77. I just started into 77. With the exception of that, I had checked off the key rookies, except for one. And when I mentioned the price range or grade range that I was looking to, he says, no, he says, for this one, you need to go a little big and get a nicer copy. It'll be worth it down the road. And so I thought about it, and looking at some of the prices for this card in a higher grade, got a little bit of a lump in my throat. It's been a while since I've spent or would be looking to spend this much on a card, even a Wade Boggs card. But I did recognize that it was going to be worth it. So I checked eBay listings, started saving up, started not buying a Wade Boggs card or a vintage card here where I could have, and sort of saved up a little bit. So again, it was within my budget. I didn't put it on a credit card or anything like that. It was something I saved up for and could afford and planned for it. So I found one, checked in with Mike. I said, hey, what do you think? Because I'm big on centering. And he says, yeah, that's a nice copy. So I bid on it, and I got outbid by a decent amount. I'm like, well, okay, so I'm gonna have to bump up my, what I'm willing to pay for this certain grade, especially centered. And so another one came around, and so I said, okay, I'm going to go after this one. And I put in what I thought was a fairly aggressive bid. And sure enough, right at the last second, I got outbid on it. I'm like, you know what? I'm wondering if this is just ever going to happen. And sure enough, a few days later, I said, just be patient. They're out there. You'll find a nice copy. And one popped up with a buy it now. And the buy it now was about, plus the two previous times were both when eBay was offering 5% eBay bucks. So I could have, probably what I would have earned with eBay bucks on that, put toward another vintage card. But so I lost out on those opportunities. But this third time, so I'll buy it now. And it was for a buy it now about $25 cheaper than like the two that I had lost out on. And so again, I checked in with Mike, and Mike, thank you. Again, you've been very helpful in speccing out this card. It's always nice to have a second opinion. You think a card may be look right, centering and stuff like that, and it's always nice to have a second opinion. And so I checked in with Mike, and he said, "Yeah, that's a nice copy." Well, as soon as he got back to me with that, no one had claimed it, so I hit buy it now. And again, I had the money saved up, and so it came in the mail today. So I'm going to show that off. Actually, I have 3 vintage cards to show off. So I'll get to them and talk about some of the other rookie cards that I've picked up in this 77 to 80 time frame. And I think I may do something similar. So I may be looking to upgrade a couple of those, maybe not right now, but at some point upgrade them to nicer copies because I think they're deserving. So with that said, I'm going to turn the camera around, show you the 2 other cards, and then I'll reveal the big vintage pickup. All right, I'm going to start off with 2 of the vintage cards I got in the mail, and they're both from 1977. The first one is the Dave Winfield. Nice 8 there, pretty well centered, maybe just a touch tight on the top there, but I thought at least the bottom borders that you can clearly see seem to be fairly uniform. Very happy. The surface seems pretty good. The back, yeah, it's a little off. There's some little print marks there, but I don't. It's not way off, so I don't mind it that much. The big thing, of course, to me is the front. So nice little pickup there for Dave Winfield. The next one is not a playing day card, but it is a it's a special. He was playing in 77, but Kari Yastrzemski turned back the clock to 1967, his Triple Crown season. And I picked that up in an 8 as well. Pretty nicely centered. Again, maybe top to bottom, but top to bottom doesn't bother me as much as left to right, but still, overall, very clean card. The back's nice as well. So there was an auction and a buy it now, 2 different ones. And so I bid, the auction was ending first. I put in a bid just under what I could buy the other one for. I like this one a little better. And I ended up winning this for a couple bucks less than I would have turned to the buy it now. So saved me a few bucks by doing the auction rather than just picking up the buy it now copy. And that this one's overall was a little bit nicer. So those are the 2. Okay, now the big card. Before I get to that, I want to go over the other key rookie cards in these years that I'm looking at, and show you what grades I have them in and so on. We'll start off with 1978, and it's the Paul Molitor Alan Trammell. Now, again, looking back at the card, the big card that I just got, yeah, this is far inferior. It is definitely left to right, off center. It's clean, and that's, I think, why I picked this one up. It's a 6. Again, it was within my limited budget without having to save up for a bigger copy, which I think I'm going to be doing now. But it's a clean. These 78s, especially the Molitor and Trammell, lots of smudging in the print, especially down here of rookie shortstops, and you get some around the borders. This was a fairly clean copy, and so I picked it up, and obviously I want to try to get maybe even if it's a bump up to a little bit nicer 7, or I have to save up some for an 8. We'll see. But for now, it's okay in my collection. But at some point, I may look at, the back's nice, but I may look at upgrading that from a 6. The next one is the Eddie Murray for 78. And again, this one's not too bad. Left to right isn't that bad, top to bottom. And I had mentioned that I don't mind as much the top to bottom off centering. This is a 6 as well. Again, a really nice back. Okay, so for where my collection is right now, I'm very happy with it. But I can see this one that, again, this is a key rookie in this year. It's a higher grade if I save up a little bit, is definitely within my price range. Now, I'm not, when I get back to the early 70s and 60s and stuff like that, some of those key rookie cards, I'm not going to say, well, I want a 7 or 8 in those, because I know, they're just going to be way too expensive. But for cards like this, I think I may be able to bump up a grade or two, a little bit nicer eye appeal. But again, for now, I'm happy to have this 6. The last one is the 79 Ozzie Smith. Now this one, in terms of eye appeal, pretty well centered, little diamond cut to it. But eye appeal there, the corners just have some wear on them, which brings it down to a 5. The back's nice too. Again, I can't complain, which is why, again, I'm not going to rush out now on the first one. Next card I'm going to buy is an upgrade to, say, this Ozzie Smith or the Eddie Murray. I have one. I have a copy in my collection, which is good. And at some point down the road, though, if I feel that I can, save up and afford maybe this one at just a 7, bump it up 1 or 2 grades, still get a nicer copy, nicely centered. We'll see. But here is the big one. If you haven't figured it out by now, it's the 1980 Rickey Henderson. And I was originally going to be looking at this possibly even as a 5. Again, a 5 or a 6, what I was getting these rookies in, right? That was going to be my sweet spot, so to speak, in terms of price point. And again, Mike, and I appreciate his input. Now, of course, he says, do as I say, not as I do, type of thing, because I know he's gotten some lower grade copies, maybe a little bit off center, but the price was right, and he added them to his collection, and that's generally where I'm going. But for this one, and when I said I was maybe hoping to find a 6, he goes, no, he says, if you can swing it, which I was able to, he says, try for an 8. So I found an 8, and I am extremely pleased with it. And even within the 8s, there are ones that are really off center, either left to right, top to bottom, or both, and they're still an 8. This one, the centering's not perfect, or else it would have been a 9, but it is really close, top to bottom, left to right. Very little diamond. That's another thing with these Rickey Hendersons. You'll get slanted borders. You can clearly see now here. It may be I looked at this really close. And for me to look that close and maybe barely see something, that's good enough for me. Obviously, it's not. You look at it and you don't go, wow, that's really on an angle. Now there is another area with these, and trust me, I've looked at a lot of these. You'll find maybe some fading within the green. That's pretty solid there. And you may be able to notice that there's a little circle. It's very, very light, but right there's a little print mark that's a little circle, and that's very common on these Hendersons. It's really rare not to have that little circle up there. But also, I've seen copies where there are also print dots and stuff all the way through here and some over there, and this is free of those. And the back is nice as well. Again, a little, from here off left to right. But again, anything a little bit better, and this would easily just that little bit of a tweak would most likely pop this up to a 9, which is way out of my price range for now. So there you have it. It's just a gorgeous card. It took me a while. I was patient finding the right copy for the right price. You'll see some of these listed nicely centered with buy it nows for 2 or close to 3 times what I paid for this. Obviously, I don't think they're going to sell at that price, but this card is definitely going to hold its value, if not go up in value, especially for the centering that this card has. So I couldn't be happier with this. Great big addition to my vintage collection. Looking forward to picking up more copies, but there you go. So hope everyone enjoyed, and let's get into trivia time. And the question from the last video, and I think most of you, I think maybe all but one of you got the answer correct. Who won a batting title in 3 different decades? And yes, it was George Brett. Shout out to James Smith, because he was the first one who replied that it was George Brett, and he named the years 1976, 1980, and 1990. So since he was the first to reply with the correct answer in years, he wanted a shout out. So James Smith, congratulations. You were the first to respond with the correct answer. All right, now the new question for this video. One of the biggest All-Star Game blowouts was in 1946, where the American League embarrassed the National League 12-0. Who hit 2 home runs in that game? 1946 All-Star Game, American League blew out the National League 12-0. Who hit 2 home runs in that game? All right, answer will be in the next video. That's all I have. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.